Soto and Chad here, and this is episode 3 of our 200 movie challenge. I still can't believe we're doing this, Soto. We're going to get to 200. I know we are. We had a good
Oh,
start to this.
without a doubt. No doubt in my mind now.
Even though there's only 3 movies we're talking about today, there's a lot to talk about for different reasons. And the first movie I want to talk about is kind of a sequel to one that I talked about last week. And I know that
Mm.
you happened to see it as well. So this is actually the first movie we both watched the same week. So we have a lot to discuss about. But Soto, we both saw Terrifier 2.
Oh, shit.
Just
We're
a
leading off
little.
with this?
We're leading off. We are leading off with this. Figured get the one that we both talked about
Oh,
out of the way.
no.
Obviously, I talked
No.
about the first Terrifier last week and the brutality of the first film, but we also brought up a lot of the shitty acting. There was a lot of bad lines. Obviously, it was the
Terrible.
first movie, so they were just testing things out, but it was a hit. So yes, they had a lot more of a bigger budget the second time around. I think they had a like a whatever fundraiser or whatever it's called, GoFundMe, and they blew their budget out of the water. So they had like almost a half a
Really?
million, I think. Yeah, if I was trying to remember, I was watching a little bit, and I don't know if they had like, I think they were trying to raise like 50 grand or something. They ended up getting like 250, 500 grand. I forget the exact amount, but they raised a
Oh,
shit
wow.
ton of movie. Hence, they had better acting. But that was one of the things you brought up with the first Terrifier, how bad it was. So outside of maybe the length, because this movie was what 2 hours and 20 minutes for a horror movie,
Yes.
what were your thoughts from from the second one compared to the first one?
It definitely felt more, before we get into the details, but overall, big picture, it felt more professional from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt more, it felt like I was watching a movie, and it had a lot of throwbacks to kind of this 80s vibe, which I really liked in it. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a step up. You could tell from the beginning, minus the part we're going to talk about, but I could already tell from the beginning that it was a much higher quality than the first one. And I'm not saying the first one wasn't a great movie, but I understand its importance overall for horror, and I could see where it was trying to go. And overall, I think it did what it needed to do. But immediately, Terrifier 2 just felt like a movie. And that's the best thing I can say about it to start off with, is that it felt like a movie, and then I was like, okay, which kind of lulled me into a sense of like safety, because I'm like, oh, I'm watching a movie. Like, okay, cool, it's a movie now. And then things happened.
Yeah, a lot of things, good and bad, definitely happened in this film. And I know I watched this before you did, and we were texting,
Yes.
and I joked, and when I knew, I said, "You're going to text me in about 5 minutes." And it
Yeah.
didn't take you 5 minutes to text me because yes, the second one kind of takes place literally right after the first one, and it
Yeah.
starts in a laundromat. He's cleaning off all the blood in his clothes, and they introduce obviously a lot of new characters, new group of kids, but they kind of
Uh-huh.
had a little girl Terrifier clown, for lack of better
A
terms, because I
demon.
don't know what to call her, and
Demon girl.
Demon Girl, and yeah,
Hmm.
obviously a lot of things happen in that laundromat, which you were like, okay, what the fuck. So
A
it
lot
kind
of
of
things happened. I mean, one thing really happened, and I don't care who's listening, but I think that we can both say out loud that I was not expecting this demon girl to just shit the floor.
yeah,
It's what happened.
it did.
Sorry, spoiler alert. Like, it's the first 5 minutes. Like, you're thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this vibe. All right, okay, yeah. And she shit the floor, which is a harken back to the first one where he just shits all over the bathroom and like writes his name and whatever. But it was the first signal of this movie that I was like,
More
okay,
crazy shit's gonna happen.
I we are now setting the foundation. I was like, I thought I was safe. I was wrong. That was the first indicator.
Yeah, and then we come to find out that no one else at this time, can see the little girl. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. And another,
Well, because he got brought back to life, right? Like by a demon. Like I kind of assumed that that demon girl was like the entity that brought him back to life.
Well,
Did you
that
get that
is,
vibe too,
I
or?
don't know, because obviously there's something that happened at the end, which we'll get to, and you're right, because she was not in the first one, and as far as we know, yes, he died in the first one, but then the electricity went out, or was flashing, and he came back to life without explanation, which I'm fine with, like that end tease. The problem I think I had with Terrifier 2, which is yes, loads better than the first one, is they seem to have introduced a lot of concepts that didn't deliver. But we're
Oh.
gonna, yeah, just because I felt like for the second one there should have been more of an explanation of things. Because, yeah, well,
Do you need
here's what.
explanation for these things?
Well, let's put it this way. So we meet the main characters, and I kind of forget their
Sure.
names already. The brother and the sister.
It's
Yes,
okay.
yes, and great. The new heroine of this movie, and
Yeah.
a little interesting. But they talk about their dad. Their dad passed away, and you find
Yes.
things like
Interesting.
he
Yeah.
did drawings from kills from the first one, and
Yeah.
other thing, just he drew the outfit, and but they never fully explained this. And
I
like
know.
that's the thing. Like I felt like, okay, give us a little bit more of, no matter how crazy the lore is, because we've
More
watched.
lore.
Well, no, but we've watched Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all this shit, and it's stupid lore.
Sure.
It's out there, but it's just like, okay, what is going on? Explain something to me. Why is this dagger magic? So it's just like, but they're like, nope, that's it. And
You
it's
hate
one
that.
thing, just give us something. And I think that's the
Follow the
problem.
rules.
There was
Follow
no
the rules
rules.
that you set up. You're like, you gotta follow the rules, man. No, I hear you. Yeah, it's what you're saying is 100% valid. Absolutely.
Because you're now creating what we know as a series, because we know there's a third one that just came out last couple of
Hmm.
years. Was it last year? I don't forget. But within the last few years, there is a third one, which we may or may not get. We will get
And it
to
takes
sometime.
place right after this movie,
I'm assuming
from
so,
what I
and this one
read.
takes place right after the
Picks up
first one.
right. Yeah, it's like right after. I think it takes place during Christmas, so that'll be an interesting Christmas film
Is that our Christmas
to
talk?
talk about.
If it's available, if it's free. Um, but
Oh my God. I don't know. Christmas is too soon for me to watch this shit again. But we'll get to that. I don't know. I'm like, I need a couple years off from this, man. The prospect of watching another Terrifier movie is just, whew, it's overwhelming, which we'll discuss.
well, we're getting there. But yeah, so like the main actress, loads better than the first one. Obviously, just
Yeah.
there was more
Oh, yeah.
charisma. You
Without a
just more
doubt.
believability. That you knew what they were talking about. There was not as cheesy of lines as the first ones. I shouldn't even say cheesy. They were just bad lines in the first one, like forced, and you're just
Yeah.
like, no one talks like this. But yes, the second one, yeah, I mean, Art the Clown just kind of takes it up a notch, but it's still more Terrifier. It's still more about the brutality. Um,
Oh my God. Yeah.
but what was your what were your first thoughts, or as far as the sequel as a whole?
As a whole, man, one of the most violent movies I've ever seen in my life. And it's just that with most horror movies, or at least the ones that are highly regarded, there's this whole thing about not showing the audience something because, as Spielberg said in Jaws, it's like, whatever you imagine is always going to be worse than what you're seeing on screen. But this movie, it's like, no, what you can imagine is not worse than what we're about to show you. And yeah, I understand obviously for it's got its story parts and I didn't really get it for story, but
True.
overall I felt that what it came out to do and what it came out to execute was ridiculously over the top, insane. I believe the director is also a special effects makeup guy.
Correct.
So a lot of the stuff is there's no CG. Maybe there's a little tiny bit of CG in one of the kills, but overall it's like the absolute violence and over the top that these kills are, and that they show you every single detail of these fucking violent murders, man. It is exhausting to watch. But honestly, and we'll talk about the rankings too, but there's a lot that I find about this movie that is incredibly like how do I say it? It's incredibly interesting how it like pushes this genre forward. Because like I said, with the hiding the horror thing and making it obvious, like horror can to me feels like at some points, really, what can you've seen everything, but what haven't you seen? I don't know, a girl's face being ripped off with acid.
Yep.
So that it was. Most movies will turn away the camera, and this movie, to its credit, is like, no, we're gonna fucking like our centerpiece of our art and shit, literally, no pun intended, is how fucking brutally violent and realistic we're gonna make these kills. Which I haven't seen in too many horror movies. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of horror movies, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree. And we kind of knew that from the first one with the infamous kill that kind of made the Terrifier movie stand out compared to others.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
bisected woman.
and yeah, so yes, this kill, everything was in your face. And,
Oh, insane.
you either like it or you don't. But it's there. And yes, it was the same. The guy wrote it, directed it, did most of the special effects, and edited it. And that's why some people are like, maybe get a different editor. Because, again, 2 hours, there's probably about half an hour worth of stuff that maybe just get a little bit shorter. Like, I will say,
That yes,
there was,
100%.
when the main actress was dreaming, and the childhood thing, while that was kind of creepy and funny, it went on for far too long
Oh
both
my god, the
times.
clown cafe shit.
Yes, the clown cafe, the song was kind of catchy. After a while you're just laughing, but I'm just like, and there was no point to it, there was no
Oh,
follow-up
there
to it.
was. There's
Well,
violence.
but that's the thing, it was just her dream though. Like, none of it was real, none of it was a backstory to art. It was just Sienna, I think her name is, having
Yes.
a bad dream, and then obviously her wings, her costume kind of goes on fire, and then you're like, oh, art made something. But no, again, that was something else that didn't come. Nothing happened with it. Just a very catchy song in a weird horror movie. So, but yes, I don't know. what, but the characters weren't bad though. Even the, for lack of better terms, the best friend, the drunk best friend, wasn't as hateable as I like in the first film. Like,
No,
she
not at
in the
all.
first film, you're just like, oh my god, this bitch needs to die. Maybe not in that fashion that we saw. This one, you actually like a lot of the characters. No
Yeah.
matter how bad. The fact that she mauled her friend, and they're laughing about it. Like, it's a small scene that you can kind of respect. Because she wasn't pissed at her friend, but they're pissed, and it was just hilarious, and I liked it. But
Oh, it's
yes,
great.
Terrifier is about the kills and everything from shotguns to just, oh my god, that acid scene. Thanks for reminding me about that, by the way.
Dude, he shot the mom's face off with the fucking shotgun, propped her body up during dinner, and then started feeding it mashed potatoes.
Oh,
My eyes saw that. In my whole life I never thought I would see that, but this movie showed me that. I find this movie weirdly brilliant, not because of the drop storylines or anything like that. This movie and this franchise is specifically this director's vibe.
hmm
This is his movie from front to back, everything. He does his own stunts. In regards to makeup, he does his own thing. It may not be perfect, but this is his style, and man, he owns the shit out of it. It's uncomfortable. I'm happy my wife never has to watch this movie, but I found it oddly endearing in that way because this is not. I mean, sure, there are some cheesy parts, but I don't feel like there's anything inauthentic about what this director, I think Damien Leone, is trying to do with this. It's got a fan base for real because there's like the vibes and the aura of this like movie franchise. It's there. I don't particularly like having to look at things like this, like when it comes to the murder, and it's like it's hard for me to separate that. But goddamn, man, this shit is a straight up vibe.
I know. I think I texted you when I was done, and I'm like, I think I'm done with horror for a little while. Like, I need, like, you just joked about, like,
I
I
didn't
need a
watch a
break.
movie after this for days. I was like, I'm not watching movies. Movies scare me now. Like now I have trauma.
But before we get to the rankings, I did want to bring up one point. I'm watching the opening credits, and I see one of the last names is Chris Jericho. I'm like, Chris Jericho's in this. And because of all the
Oh yeah,
brutality, I forgot until because he doesn't appear until the very end, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's
very
right,
end.
Chris Jericho's in this movie, and I know you mentioned he's in the third one, probably going to get killed because it takes place right
Oh yeah.
afterwards. But
Ugh,
actually,
that terrible
so
scene. Yeah.
so yes, before we get into the rankings, I obviously just want to skip to the end, the very end, the mid-credit scene, because
Oh
obviously
God,
Art's
no.
dead. She cuts off the head like the father envisioned, which no one explains, whatever. And then the little girl just takes the head away. And you're like, okay, this is creepy and whatnot. And then, yes, they show the mid credit scene where, if you remember the girl from the first one who had the mauled
Oh, of
face, it's
course.
kind of the
How
same
could I
actress,
forget?
actually. She's in a psych ward after killing that reporter, and she gives birth to his head. Is I mean, I don't know how
I
else to
don't.
explain that, Soto.
I
I
was
really don't
horrified
know
by.
how else to explain that scene.
I was horrified by that scene from the jump when she's just putting her blood on the walls, and I'm like, what is happening? I thought I was safe. I thought this movie was over. And then that started happening, and I was like, oh my God, why is this happening? And then his head, I had no idea what was going on, and all I wanted to do was just get off that fucking ride, because that shit was like, I thought I was done with this movie.
Just,
And then it got even more disgusting
yep.
at the end.
But I think I like your idea that
Kudos.
maybe that little girl, in a weird way, resurrects. I don't know. I didn't fully get it, and like I said, that
That's what
ending,
I got out of it.
yeah, maybe it's true, and I guess we'll find out for the third one. So Soto, I think we've talked
Oh,
about this enough. Where do you rank this in your rankings of movies?
I know this is going to be strange. I mean, it's a short list, but I had to put it at number two, strictly because I think that it just more impactful to everything. Like Northman, Northman, I loved it. I'll probably watch it again. Like Robert Eggers, we've talked about Robert Eggers a lot on these, podcasts. But it was whatever. Fall Guy, really funny, great Saturday movie. Middle of the day, it's raining out. You want to watch a movie with Ryan Gosling, it's going to work out. That's great. Oppenheimer, boring. I was disassociated. None of them were as impactful to me or had a vision that was stronger than what was in Terrifier 2. So, like, do I think Terrifier 2 is a better movie, quote unquote? Maybe not, like, executed, right? We talked about, obviously, it's clear plot holes it has. But, like I said earlier, when you're watching a movie and it's got that undeniable, this is unique, this is a vibe, there's no way I could put it below any of these other things that I'm kind of like, meh. Because, like, I don't think Fall Guy did anything that. If Fall Guy was really funny and I enjoyed it, it did everything that a movie should do. Like when you go to any restaurant, Louis Louis should sponsor us, and you eat their stuff and you're like, okay, this pasta did the job. I ate it. It's all good. Yeah, that's what Fall Guy is. Oppenheimer is boring. So again, Terrifier 2, I think that where it stands with the genre, how it took, the craziness from Terrifier 1 and escalated Terrifier 2 was just way cooler than any other movies I've seen. Obviously, I'm not going to put it over Lawrence Arabia. I'm not. Uh, that's just ridiculous. But I think that it deserves. I mean, its own spot. We've talked about, in just you and I talking. It's like, oh, what's the best horror sequel like to a franchise that you've seen? Because usually the first one's good, and then they kind of fall off. I think maybe Friday the 13th maybe doesn't have that, but Terrifier 2 is better than Terrifier 1.
Oh, hands
It
down.
expands the universe and it expands the kills and it brings it into like a professional movie kind of a setting. And I think Terrifier 2, as far as just, being an excellent, it's got a great horror lead, it's got a great everything. I think it's up there. So I think that there was no way I could put it below anything except Lawrence of Arabia this week.
So I take a look at my list, and I will tell you this, Soto. I actually put it right above the first Terrifier, which I think would put it the number three spot. And it's funny because because again, I'm looking at my list as a
Yeah.
whole, and
Hmm.
I know you can't see the bottom right now, but like Under the Bed
My old
is
ass.
shit. But then I look at like My Old
Yep.
Ass and Tag. Those are movies we're not going to talk about in 5 years. We're not even going to remember. Outside of like, can you believe they made a movie called Tag? And like My Old Ass, as much as I enjoyed it and it was had its moments, I'm going to forget
Yes.
about it in a few years.
Right.
The
Hmm.
Terrifiers are going to stick with me. Like they are
Mm-hmm.
memorable. I but the top two I feel are better movies, and I said this begin kind of the nostalgia feel to them, and I get
Of course.
that's why I put them ahead. But you're right. So right now for me, Terrifier 2 would be right above the first Terrifier. I have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling as time goes on, there will be things in between there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's kind of where I put it. Because again, I don't think I'm ever going back to watch either of these Terrifier movies, but they are going to
Oh, I
stick in
don't
my
know
brain
if
as
I
far.
want to.
No, I don't. Whenever we get to see the third one, I don't need a recap of the first two. It'd be like, okay, it's gonna be bloody. Yes, that's all I need to know. Like that's what they are, and I'm
Oh.
fine with that. Like I said, I mean, there was other movies. I don't want to say similar, but like Hostel, where it was meant to be brutal. This one takes it above and beyond, and you know what you're getting.
Oh my
If
God,
you
yeah.
hate it, don't watch it. But yeah,
Don't. It's not for everybody. It's disgusting. It I hate to say I keep calling it art, but it is an art form to make something look as disgusting and realistic as it does in Terrifier and Terrifier 2. Those are hard scenes to watch and they're believably gross. So you're like, "Oh my God." Like you do buy into like just the horrifying aspects of it. And it doesn't give a fuck, man. It doesn't care. Like if you don't like that stuff, it's going to be as gross as possible, which makes me really not want to watch the third one. But I mean, I know I have to. I'm already this far.
we,
I'm
we,
I'm
we
too
started the
I'm too
journey.
far in.
Yes, when the third one's free, whether or not we get to it this year or not, I know we're gonna see it. But
I think they're making a fourth one too.
probably people keep paying to see it. Why not?
Oh,
I mean, that's what horror
that's business,
franchises
yeah.
do. Just spit them out.
It's legit. It's a horror franchise for extreme horror fans. It's not like you said. It's definitely not for everybody. It's not.
No. All right, so let's move on from horror. And then let me
All
talk
right.
about the next two movies I saw. The first one I saw after Terrifier 2.
What a segue. Sorry, we should have ended with this because now it's like, so Anyways, Uncharted.
Yeah, no, you got to start off with the best that we're going to talk about most of all. But, as we've been talking about preparing to actually do a podcast on Spotify and kind of a little bit more professionally or better mics, I guess I
Yes.
should say,
Oh, way
we were
better
talking
mics.
about
Way better.
why there isn't a good movie based on a video game, live action more or less, because I know some cartoons did well. And I realize it's a great topic, but there's a lot of movies I haven't seen in the last 10, 15 years that are based on video games that I'm like, I should probably get up to date. And yeah, so
Hmm.
the next movie I saw was Uncharted. Now, before I get into this movie, Soto, I am a huge Uncharted fan.
Oh, I'm already pissed off at like fucking Mark Wahlberg.
Oh,
But
we're
let's
going
not
to get
get
to
on.
that. We are 100% going to get
Is
to
that
that.
Antonio Banderas?
Yes. But hold on.
Oh
Hold
my
on. Before we get to the
God.
movie, I've played every game, all four games, the spin off games. I love Nathan Drake as a character. When they first talked about this movie 10, 15 years before this, and Nathan Fillion was attached to it, I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
that is fucking perfect. He was perfect for this role.
absolutely.
And I know he did a few movies, but obviously he's a bigger TV star, with all the. I'm like, it was meant to be. And then it kept getting pushed back, and kept getting pushed back. And then obviously he got older. And I know they had that fan made movie right before COVID that he did, which was friggin' great. So, yes, when Uncharted finally comes out and I'm seeing Tom Holland, I'm seeing Mark Wahlberg as basically
Hmm.
Drake and Sully, I am already pissed. I know, like, I got to give it a shot, though. I love the games, and they do bring. The good thing about this, similar to like Tomb Raider, is you don't have to use the story from the games, but they bring characters from all four games. They brought Chloe from the second game, his brother Sam from the fourth one. There might be more that I don't even
Oh,
know. So, and they
I
kind
never
of
even
create
played
an
those
original story.
games.
And I'm starting to watch this, and I'm already pissed. I'm seeing who I love as Spider-Man. Do not get me
Wasn't
wrong.
Sully like balding with a
No,
mustache?
I think he had a full head, but yes, mustache
No,
and
he had
cigar.
hair. You're right, but he was like an old.
Oh,
He didn't look like
correct.
Mark Wahlberg.
No, correct. And we're gonna get to Mark Wahlberg in a sec. Just I gotta save this for Mark Wahlberg. But yeah, I've seen Tom Holland, and I get it. People can be like, well, it's like a
Banderas.
beginning story of Nathan Drake. I'm like, Tom Holland can't pull off the cockiness that is Nathan Drake, and that Nathan Fillion could have done. He could, so. And I'm watching this, and yes, they introduced Mark Wahlberg as Sully, which is a different dynamic than the games, because the games,
Way
Sully,
different.
he met Drake more as a kid and kind of was the
Hmm.
de facto father figure. Whereas this, it
Hmm.
was just kind of, kind of colleague. There is a little story because he knew, Sam, Drake's brother, but Nathan's brother. So as this movie's going, I will say one thing. Tom Holland grew on me a little bit. I'm like, okay, he finally found his mark as
Really?
Nathan. He did, and I will admit, because I was trying not to be biased, and I'm just trying to watch it as just for a movie. I will tell you this: Mark Wahlberg never grew on me as Sully. Sully should have been older. But so,
Yes,
do you remember
the
what you used to always say
mustache.
about Kevin Costner? No, screw the mustache. I don't even care about that. The mustache. But you know how
Oh,
Kevin Costner,
important,
you
most
said
important part.
always plays Kevin Costner in every movie. That's how I feel about Mark
Yes.
Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg was his best early on when he did Fear, he Basketball Diaries, and his last good acting movie I would say is probably Boogie Nights. But every movie since then, it's fucking
Oh,
Mark Wahlberg,
fantastic.
Boston Mark,
Fantastic.
and I could not stand him. But I actually did enjoy this movie. So this ended up being such a fun movie. All these side characters, like I said, Chloe, they actually don't bring in Elena, which surprised me because she was heavy in the first one, but obviously he's just too young
Uh,
for, meeting his future wife if that's where they're going. But kind of like watching, again, the Laura Croft movies. I don't want to compare it to Indiana Jones, but those fun adventure movies, like, dude, I actually was in. I'm like, all right, I'm loving this. Just the over top action. And like I said, Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, I'm not going to say he would have been better than Nathan Fillion, but it finally worked for me. I kind of accepted it, and I
so he
just
was the strength of this.
he was kind of the strength of it. Well, it's hard because,
Interesting.
but I also think just the sets and the action scenes is the real strength of this film, and I think just like I said from the opening, I don't know if you played Uncharted 2. It starts off with like that train,
Yeah,
he
he's
fall
like injured and
and
shit.
yes, and it's like the tutorial, and then you find out how he
Yeah.
gets there later in the game. This starts off with something, and then you find out how he gets there, with like an insane. And so I laughed.
Interesting.
There's little Easter eggs, but so do I did. I actually, as the movie went on, I enjoyed it. Mark Wahlberg withstanding. There's even at the end of the
Uh,
movie, he grows the mustache, and Tom Holland, I
does
say,
he?
yes, he does, and Tom Holland's making fun of
That's
it, and
great.
then throws him a cigar, and I'm just like, it still doesn't look like Sully, but whatever he does. But the whole movie, he doesn't have the mustache. The dynamic isn't there like in the games, but I think Tom Holland saves his film, but it's also the action.
Is this like a prequel to the games or?
It's its own thing. It's again. I go back to what Angelina Tomb Raider is. You can just kind of do your own thing in that universe. Just have the adventures, but it is how he met Sully, which is the same as the games, and kind of like the first thing he's trying to find his brother. He believes his brother's still alive, which again, spoiler, like the games, he is. But
Yeah, isn't he like a? I haven't even got that far. It's like I don't even know
well,
what's
he
going
in
on
the
in this.
games he wasn't even mentioned until the fourth one. You didn't even know Nathan Drake had a brother, and you're like, he has a brother. So, again, it was great dynamic in the games. The movie's great, like I said, and I think it's just great because it's a fun movie. And once you kind of just tear it down, like, okay, I'm not expecting the games. Tom Holland's fine, and I think that's why this movie failed. Though I think fans of the games are pissed, and people who just wanted to see a movie are like, well, this is based on a game. This is probably going to be shit. So I think that didn't do well. If you just go in with no mindset, I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
and I say that because of where I rank this. Now, we just mentioned Terrifier. I would never see again. I'll be honest. I would never go back and watch this, but if Uncharted was on, I probably would watch it. I would, oh, I'll keep it on. Um, and because of this, I actually would put Uncharted right above Terrifier 2. I know this might be a hot take, but
Wow.
I'm
Hot
telling you,
take. I like it.
I enjoyed it. It was so again, it was fun, and
Wow.
it is because I would see Uncharted again. Um, because once I
Didn't see
got
that
all my
coming.
biases out and all my grumpiness out, old man Chad out, I'm like, this is actually a good movie. There's a fun story to it. Yes, I was playing the games. I kind of knew some more of the dynamics to the characters that might not have been here, but overall, they told the story they needed to do. And like I said, Tom Holland is likable as Nathan Drake. He pulls it off. It was tough at first.
Wow.
I'm not going to lie, because again, I had a little bias there, but it worked for me. So I actually thoroughly enjoyed Uncharted, and I was surprised. And I think that's part of the reason I went in with very, very low expectations because I was already
It's
mad.
such that's now it's like I feel like I have to watch this. But look at you, growing and accepting a movie for what it is. You're like, it had rules. and it followed them in an entertaining way.
It did, and
Chad's rules.
it is. Well, I mean, you don't need the rules like in a horror movie, but yes, it did have its own set of rules. But again, it didn't have to follow much. It's not like a story that it had to follow exactly the game. So,
Mm.
and I think that's why it worked. You can just create an original story. And from my understanding, they're already doing an Uncharted 2 movie. So I don't know when that's coming out, but the rumor is there. So we'll see.
Wow,
Yeah,
unexpected.
it is. It is very unexpected.
Yeah, I feel like I have to watch this now.
If you get a chance, like I said, it is fun. I don't know how far you got in the Uncharted games, but like I said, if you enjoyed, again, hate to go back to it, the Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie, just
I
over
mean,
the top action, you're fine with this.
different reasons.
Mark Wahlberg is the only bad part of this movie.
I mean, I've lived with that
He's not
before. I
Sully.
know you.
He's not Sully.
He's terrible when he's terrible, but he's okay. If he's at least okay, I could tolerate him because I liked the movie The Other Guys with him and
But
Will
that's a
Ferrell. That's one of my
comedy.
favorite movies. Yeah, he's
So
really good at comedy because in Departed too, he was actually in The Departed. He was like the funniest person there. Him and Alec Baldwin's like back and forth, like Mark Wahlberg had. He was just hilarious. But sometimes, he's just mailing it in like he works at fucking Dunkin's doing.
yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it's a weird chemistry between the two. Like I said, they do make it a little bit better. It does grow, but I think that has a lot to do with Tom Holland. So, and that could be my opinion. Some Mark Wahlberg fans might find it differently. So
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Boogie Nights is legit though. They'll
it is.
always
No,
have
no,
Boogie
I
Nights. I need to
agree.
buy that shit on Blu-ray.
That was a great movie, and like I said, his early stuff was really good. I just think there came a time when he got big that everything is a Mark Wahlberg movie. Like it's just him. It's nothing different. Like you said with Kevin
I mean,
Costner.
yeah. It's like, somebody gives you a paycheck. They're like, hey, will you be in this stupid movie that is terribly written? We'll pay you $25 million. You're like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll give it my best shot. I mean, it's just work. It's just a job. Like, it's obviously we romanticize it. We watch these movies, but as you know, there are people behind the scenes who are like, fuck this job. I just want to quit.
yeah. All right, so I got one more movie, and this past weekend,
Oh, I need to hear about this.
yeah. So it was a movie
Tell
we.
me all about it.
Oh, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Jill and I talked about seeing this in theaters. Just because we're both intrigued and like, let's see how it goes. It was on Max. So I'm like, I think it was Max or Peacock. Either
I
way.
can hear your tonality.
Um,
I kind of know where this is going.
well, no, no. So I'm just trying to set the stage, and obviously I've heard not so great things about this. A lot of people are like, it's not like the original. So
I said that too. Yeah, 'cause I
you were
heard it.
one. You were
I've
one.
not watched it.
But yes, we did end up watching Beetlejuice, and I don't know how to. I really don't know how to take this.
Oh, I can't wait.
Well, here's why. They, obviously, the first one's a classic, and I think because it had the overall cast, from even Gina Davis, Baldwin, and Michael Keaton
Oh,
could
dude.
steal the show. But
Winona
Catherine
Ryder,
O'Hara, just
one of my first
everyone else,
crushes. Oh.
yeah, of course, Winona Ryder. So obviously, a lot of those actresses and actresses aren't around. They had to write Baldwin and Gina Davis out because in real life they're older. They can't play the same age, and they had a good line. Why?
Correct.
So we're watching this, and don't get me wrong, there is some fun parts to this, and I'm laughing because there's this character you kind of see him off to the right, Bob, and I'm problem is there's
Bob.
way too many characters. They introduced way too many storylines, and I think they overcomplicated the soda. Because
Chad doesn't like this.
well, because no, because Beetlejuice, his I guess former wife is come back. I don't want to say back from the dead, but because she was already dead. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, Monica Bellucci, is that what that is?
The one in the bottom.
Yeah.
Why she wants to go after Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Lydia, the main story is Lydia can actually still see ghosts, and she kind of uses it as a talk show. Her daughter, Jenna Ortega, does not believe in any of this shit. But, they had to write the dad out of the story because of legal reasons of what
course.
he did afterwards. And so the whole thing is he dies in the movie, spoiler, but it happens in the beginning. And they go back to that house to sell it. And things happen, but there's, Willem Dafoe's also in this too. There's so many I don't
Wait, you
know.
think
There's
Willem
just so
Dafoe?
many stories that was happening, and they would have just focused on one. Because I'll be honest, I felt like Michael Keaton was a waste. Jenna Ortega's
What?
story was the only thing that saved this film. Like that was interesting, and a lot of things got cut off. Yeah, I think he could have been a lot better. Lydia was Lydia. The mom, Catherine O'Hara, I forget her name, but she didn't really have much to do with this film either. Like anything going on, it was just they. I felt like Tim Burton was throwing so much at this movie, and it
Oh my
just didn't
God,
work.
Tim
But
Burton.
Jenna Ortega, her storyline, because she meets a boy there, and obviously she doesn't believe. Like where Lydia in the first one, she believes in the strange and unusual. Jenna Ortega is so like anti that. She's like, no, ghosts aren't real, mom. Like you're an idiot. She does until obviously there comes a part where she does believe we knew it was going to happen. But yes, even Michael Keaton, there was something, and I think it's because the rest of the cast, how what they did in the first one, that he could steal the show, where I think everyone expected him to steal the show, and I don't think he did. And they even have a weird musical
Interesting.
number which went on for way too long. Because in the first one, we talked about this in like great scenes from the '80s. The dinner scene, Deo, um, classic scene. They had a musical number here. I'm laughing at some parts, but then it just kept going on way too fucking long. So yeah, nostalgia helped it a little bit. We still laughed at some parts, but overall, they introduced so many stories and then ended it. Like it was like, oh, like if they would have focused on, I would say the Jenna Ortega part, and Lydia, what was going on between the two of them. I think that might have been stronger. But then, yes, Beetlejuice had a wife. There's this cop trying to, get Beetlejuice. It's so much is happening, and then it just ends. Like then I'm talking about each story. So it just, I don't know. It just fell flat. So and yes, so the reviews are real. Will they ever do a third one? Probably, just to get his three names out there. But I'll tell you, the fact that I think again I say Bob, and I don't know if you can see the shrunken head guy to the right with like the golden jacket.
Hmm.
He, I laughed like the scenes with him. He upstaged Beetlejuice. That should tell you something. Like even every time he came on, I'm like, "Go Bob, I love you." Like I'm saying this out loud. Like I'm laughing at him, and that should not be a character you're laughing at the most in this
No.
film. But
Here's my question for you,
mhm,
right? What was the last Tim Burton movie that you liked?
I'm probably gonna. I don't know because I cannot think of a lot of
I
his
know it's
middle
like I'm putting
stuff.
you on the spot, but
Well, no, because
what was the
I
last thing that you remember being like strongly? It doesn't have to be the last thing you like, but like, what do you strongly remember liking the
hold on.
last?
If we give me a quick second here to kind of quickly look up his filmography, because again, I have not seen anything from him probably in the last
Letterboxed.
20 years, and I know how you feel about Tim Burton because you've told me about you and your wife. But let's see. Let me
Oh,
look.
look. I'll say this while you're looking. Tim Burton right now is a brand. That's what Tim Burton is to me. When somebody's like, "This is a Tim Burton film," I'm like, there are people, and I don't want to be controversial, but there are people who are just going to be Tim Burton fans regardless of what Tim Burton does. Like he will put out this kind of stuff, and people will be like, "It's all right. I'm going to keep watching it." People will buy things because it says it's from Tim Burton. So,
All right, so I'm kind of. I just want to do a quick look, and this is why. So I'm going to be
hmm
honest with you, Soto. Though I've heard good things, I've never seen Sweeney Todd. That might. So FYI, I've heard good things about her,
Sweet
mixed things.
Todd.
That's a hit or miss with people.
Sarah loves it.
Yeah.
Like that's one of her favorite movies. I'm kind of whatever about it.
I have not seen. Yeah,
She
I think
loves
he
it.
did Alice in Wonderland, but honestly,
Oh,
the last good movie that I kind of remember that he did that I loved. Actually, I remembered enjoying Nine, but I don't remember much of Nine now that I look at that. But Big Fish, I remember really liking Big Fish, and that was
nah.
2003. So that should
I
tell you.
think the last thing that I saw, which people hate, and people hated it and still hate it. But the last like sort of anything that I found him that was funny or interesting was probably Mars Attacks. Nobody
96.
is gonna agree with me on that, but Mars Attacks is fucking hilarious. If you take it for what it is, it's like a satire. A lot of people kind of split off of him off of that because they didn't get it, but and it's got so many different actors in it, but it is really fucking funny.
Yeah, no, I
But
saw that in
like
theaters.
after that, I'm just like whatever. Of course, Nightmare Before Christmas is iconic, right? Um, actually, his first movie is
Pee Wee's
I think
Playhouse. Or Big
genius.
Adventure.
Yeah, because there's not black and white, like the Tim Burton colors. We're used to it's like all this color palette, it's everything, and it's the perfect like Tim Burton movie. Of course, large margins in it, it's great. But 1996, dude. I mean, that was a long time ago. I'm being told that that was 30, almost 30 years ago.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Where
Mars
I
Attack
like
was
the last.
96.
I don't remember. It's like, and again, my wife loves Tim Burton, but it's disappointing to hear the things about this because this should have been just a home run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about Beetlejuice sequels when I was like in the early 90s. I was like, oh man, if only they made a sequel to Beetlejuice. And you finally get a sequel to Beetlejuice and it's this. I haven't seen it, so I can't really get too much into it, but it's disappointing to hear that it's not that, especially Michael Keaton wasn't the strongest part about this.
And
That's
again,
crazy.
finishing off his filmography, obviously I did like Batman, and I agree with you. Sleepy Hollow, I
Oh,
remember
all
seeing
right. I like that
that
one.
was
It was
99.
okay.
That was 99.
Yeah, that was
So
all right. All right. Okay. Yeah, it was recent.
but again, I remember liking Big Fish, but that did not feel like it's him. Well, maybe it did. It's just been so long. But anyhow, so the real question is where I put this on my rankings.
Ooh,
I will tell you, do
not
not
under the
worry.
bed.
This is not going under the bed.
Under the bed.
That is still going to be fine on my list. I do put it right below Terrifier and above my old ass. Because I don't know if
Better than my old ass? That third act must have fucking not been that great.
here. Neither third
Do you
act
know what
is
I mean?
over. Well, again,
Right, but like my old ass, you liked a lot, but you said it fell apart towards the end.
it
But
did.
it
And
fell apart for you so much that you put Beetlejuice over it.
well, here's the thing. As I just said in the beginning of this, I'm not going to remember my old ass in about 5 years.
Me neither.
I'm probably not going to remember the movie until I only watched it because of the title, and I was surprised. Soto, the best part, I honestly, here's why, and I didn't even mention this the first time. So yes, if you remember my old ass, yes, she takes shrooms and she talks to her older self. Great, interesting premise to start off with, whatever.
Great premise.
But the one thing that the older self tells the younger self is stay away from Chad. He's trouble. There's a character named Chad in this. So that's probably the only thing I'm going to remember from this afterwards. Like if we talk about this 5 years from now, I'm like, oh yeah, there was a character named Chad.
Yeah.
But again, it was good. And do not get me wrong, there are parts of Beetlejuice which I did like. I just felt, going back where I said Uncharted, I had low expectations and it kind of hit. I think that I don't want to say I had high expectations because I've been hearing, but I still had a little bit more because of how the first Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a lot of people did not
Sure.
like this,
Yeah.
and there were still scenes I did enjoy. I just felt this could have been better if he focused on maybe just plot A, plot B. There's always usually two stories. I just felt like there was like 5, 6, 7 stories, and then it ended. Like they ended the story great. At least they gave us a conclusion to that part. But I'm like, wow, that was quick. They could have fleshed this out a little bit more. And I do like the fact that Jenna Ortega is kind of the straight arrow in this one because a lot of things she does, she's like the Winona Ryder Lydia. She's usually the outcast of difference. So the fact that she's played as the straight arrow, I do like it. And don't get me wrong, there are parts I did laugh, and we both laughed and enjoyed. I just don't think if you're comparing to the original, there's so much more they could have done. And I felt like, yeah, Michael Keaton, the character Beetlejuice, there just could have been so much more to him. Like I said, he stole the show in the first one, and I think just the expectations for that character was a little bit more for this one. So, yeah, I still will rank this higher than my old ass. Will I ever go back to watch this? Probably not. Definitely not. But you never know. But it's not going to stick with me as much as the Terrifier films are. So it's going to be right underneath that. So, yeah, you like Winona Ryder? She's basically the same character, just as an adult as Lydia. So her character, outside of becoming a mom, barely grew. So and that's fine. But yeah, I was a little disappointed. Again, though, I did laugh at some parts. There's some parts I enjoyed. I just felt a lot of it was a mess, though. Whereas my old ass, yes, it does fall apart, but at the same time, it's nothing I'm going to be talking about 2-3 years. I'll still talk about Beetlejuice a little bit, like, oh my god. But that's
how can you not? It's part of a iconic, like, well, it's part of a 2-movie thing. So
yeah. So, but yes, those are the movies I saw this week. I do not know what I'm planning on watching next week. I just know I'm probably going to take a break from horror for a little while.
Oh no, I'm good with horror. I'm going to watch I've got some ideas of things I'd want to watch, and uh, I'm excited to see what next week's gonna be. It's not gonna be horror though. I told Sarah that I want to watch something beautiful, where beautiful things happen. I was like, it could be animated, it could be anime. I don't care. I was like, but I want to watch something beautiful. Try to find Tarsum's The Fall, because I haven't seen that one, and it looks from everything I've seen, it's gorgeous. It's from the director of The Cell, which
Oh
I
yeah, I
thought the
remember that.
Cell movie was kind of shitty, but the special effects were amazing, and Vincent D'Onofrio was great. So I'd like to see that, but we'll see. I'm kind of in a David Lynch sad mood right now, so I kind of want to see Eraserhead. So I might check that out, or anything else I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen Inland Empire either, but just with David Lynch passing away, I kind of wanted to see, watch a movie that I haven't seen because Twin Peaks for me is one of the best things I've ever seen. So
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be watching this week. Probably just who knows. I might just pop it on Tubi and just find a shit movie. Maybe that's worse than Under the Bed. We'll find out.
why? Oh my God, we're only in January, man. We don't have to
I,
do that shit yet.
why not? You just throw in a little fun one every now and then. Who knows? Um, we'll see. We'll see. I have nothing truly planned yet, but it's just what I find. So, but anyhow, those are the movies we saw this week. Yeah, from Terrifier, Uncharted, Beetlejuice, just a nice little range. But I think now, Soto, we're officially 14 movies in. 12, 13, yeah, 14 movies in.
Hey,
So we're
not
still doing
bad.
pretty well for only seeing 3 this
We
week.
got
So
this, man.
that's why we got to bank it
It's only
early.
January. We got a strong start. Here's the great news. There's so many movies we haven't seen. You can
Yeah.
throw a dart and just be like, "Oh, I haven't seen that."
I will say this, I want to take from you. I do want to find an older classic that I haven't seen and kind of watch that. Just an
Mm,
older movie because I think a lot of the movies I've seen have come out within the last 5 years. I think I can't think of which one's the old. Yeah, I think Terrifier might have been the oldest movie I've seen because that was 2013, 2016. So I do want to find some older
yeah.
ones. Find some classics that I've missed. I know my wife wants me to see Les Mis, so maybe we get that
Oh
to this
yeah,
weekend.
that's
So
happening.
yeah, that's definitely going to
I can't
happen.
wait
It's
to
just a
hear
matter
that.
of when. So, but anyway, Soto,
Yeah.
that's episode 3 of our 200 movie challenge. As we always tell people in the comments, because someone actually suggested a movie for us on Twitter, which I might have to see for them, but I don't know. I'm not a Kevin Hart fan.
Twitter?
Yes. Oh, I'm
Wait,
sorry,
which Kevin Hart
X.
movie?
Lift. It's his newest one, and it's
Lift.
one that's not
I'll
a
tell you this
comedy.
right
It
now.
actually looks decent.
I don't. Well, I okay. That's kind of sad because I'll tell you that sometimes Kevin Hart, like, I just look at him and I can't help but laugh really hard. Like when he makes jokes, he makes me almost piss my pants. He's fucking hilarious.
No, and I agree. In a lot of his movies, he's just Kevin Hart, but I think this is more of a
Yeah,
serious movie.
exactly.
Do not get me wrong. I was like, oh, but I kind of just saw the premise, and it doesn't seem like a typical comedy. So I'm like, all right, and it's free on Netflix. So I'm like, I'm
Oh,
not
it's
saying
free.
it's free. She left a couple of
Interesting.
suggestions, and Lyft was one. The other one's not free. I can't remember. It was a Jason Statham action movie. I'm like, yeah, but so yes, I've heard good things about Lyft, but I don't know if I'll get to it. But it's going to be on my radar because again, the premise kind of looked good and it didn't look like a Kevin Hart comedy, which is like, yeah, that's fine. I laugh at some of the shit he
Yeah.
says, but then kind of like he's Kevin Hart in a lot of films anyway. So, but anyhow,
Hmm.
that is for next time. Soto. Um, yeah, I don't even know how to end this. Usually we're just like, have a good one and, what do we learn? But I don't know. I think the only thing we've learned this week is we're done with horror movies, for a little while.
Yeah, it's January. I can officially say that October is over, and I'm ready to move on.
But, but until next time, just watch some good movies, man. Or some bad ones.
Yeah, man, make it a blockbuster night, bitch.